Hello, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about how we can automate project submittals using the BIM Batch Suite. So we all know that updating standards and making model corrections in Revit can be tedious and time-consuming, especially when those changes affect multiple models that are never executed consistently. The BIM Batch Suite provides us tools that handles daily and weekly automation of plotting and exports, as well as consistently clean up and prep models for submission or archive. Today, I will show you the basic of configuration of plotter and explorer, how it runs and the export results. Also, how to use the project processor to clean our project and deliver a cleaned model to other consultants. So let's imagine a situation here. Let's say we are close to the 50% submittal. Our electrical consultants are using DWG, then we need to provide CAD files for them. Mechanical and structural is using Revit, so we need to provide a Revit file. In our project, we are also submitting files for Navis work for clash detection between mechanical, structural, and architectural. As part of this process, we typically archive the model to state the model at this stage, then we clean it. So let's not forget also the PDFs. We want to plot some PDFs as well. Let's add that to our list. So how much time would this process take if we have to do it manually? Probably a lot of time. So to achieve all of them, first we will start with the Plotter and Explorer tool, then we use the project processor. So let's open the Plotter and Explorer, which is right here on top. So then it's going to start loading all the views and sheets, legends available in this model that I have opened. And here on the left side, we'll list all of those views. And on the right side is what we want to include on that export. So I'm just going to do a quick remove those ones here. Okay, so we also have what's called the wildcard search, which gives us possibility of searching certain views or certain sheets based on a rule that we established. So it can be used by like the view type, naming, for example, or and that was associated with the view template that we applied for. So we can also automate this process with using the wildcard. But let's say we want to do this manually. We can, of course, browse through this all the available sheets that you see here. So let's say we have the floor plan. I can go one by one and dropping wherever I want them to go, right? But that is probably time consuming. It can be done, and you can also put it in the different sections in here, and then to change it the settings, how you want to export those, and then do it once. But we can also use the wildcard, and that's the part that I think it would be really helpful because we can save this process for the future. So let's go here on the tab wildcard, and I already have some of them created, like the CAD export in here. And I'm gonna just open this one and edit. So basically I click on the add button right here at the bottom. And then I typed a certain information that I want. For example, I wanted to search for all of them. That's the asterisk symbol. And I gave it a name. And I'm searching for all the views. So I want to look for all views of all disciplines. And also the the rule-based parameters that I set up. So within all the views, I want the wild search to search for the view type that equals export CAD. Because I know that I have views that I set up on my project that contains this naming. And also I use the view template to make this even easier for me. So I can click OK. Because I wanted to place those views and export to DWG, this is what I can do. I can grab them and then load it here. And well, it doesn't really tell me what are the views that I'm looking for. But when I click here on the edit button, right here at the bottom, we have a test button. So we can test even this before we apply. So there's some styling plans here. There's also a site. I could potentially do a cleanup in here in this model, because I don't want to export that 3D view to the CAD plan, but I have a floor plan, ceiling plans, and you can add, duplicate the views out of that template, and then when you run this again, it would pop up in your results. One thing that I want to point out is you can include and filter based on the revisions that you have. So you can only include views that contain any of the revision sequence, and then you can pick the sequence that contains the highest revision issue or it contains the highest revision defined, and you can customize the list as well. So I'm going to uncheck that. I'm also want to create one for Navisworks export. So I'm going to add one more here. And I want this to search for all. And I'm going to call this Navisworks export. I want you to search for views. And within the view type, because Navisworks, it has to be a 3D view. So I want to filter that just to look for 3D views. Right here at the bottom, I'm going to go through, browse through that view type, because I have one view that actually contains the Navisworks export applied to this. So what I'm going to look for those view types, and this is depending on how you set it up your views. So view type equals Navisworks, and I'm going to run a test. Those are the 3D views that I have, and I have some ceilings, floors, roofs, furniture, walls, exteriors, and walls, interiors. So those other categories are turned off, and the views, the 3D views only shows those elements in here. So looks good. Then I can click OK. I'm gonna check this one, and I can drag this into my Navisworks. I also look for sheets. So there is one setting here that I had it saved previously, that is sheets that starts with the weight A1. So let's take a look at those settings. So search for all the A1 asterisk sheets. This is the naming, and then search for the sheets, not the views in this situation. And when we run a test, those are the views, the sheets that I have on my plan. Okay, so I click OK. I also want this one on my PDF, so I want to plot them to PDF. Next step, it will be take a look at some of those settings. So let's see the PDF settings that I have in here. So you can use the printer name that you would like to. I picked a Bluebeam. And I also have printer settings, and I have two modified. So I call it the printer settings for PDF, for Bluebeam PDF. And I browse through the folder where I want to put the export. And I'm creating a subfolder in this folder that is called with the date on it. And this is quite typical, right? When we are when we're getting close to that submittal percentage and we're looking for those files, we usually save them into a date, because that actually tell us when we export it, and when we share that information to our consultants, they also know when this was done. So it's like a screenshot of that moment of the project. So we can also select a time, so you can add a time to that naming convention as well, to the folder. I think it's not necessary right now. One of the things I did here was combine the sheets, just to keep everything in one. I select to keep hyperlinks, but you can keep the pages in the order selected as well. And right here at the bottom, this is how you're gonna name the file. So right here at the bottom, there's a preview. So I pick the project number and a project name, and this is how the file, the PDF file, is going to be named. So I'm going to click OK. Oh, one thing you can do is you can copy this file naming rules to other exports formats as well. So if this applies to the other export, I could just click here, and then this will be done once. I don't need to go through each them and then name it. We'll leave this one for the PDF because they're going to be unique. The other one I'm going to look at is the DWG. So same thing with the DWG, I select the location, the folder location, the date on it, and the DWG settings as well. As you can see, if you have settings, you can pick the ones that you have here on the drop-down list, or you can just use the custom export settings and then edit them. So I'm just going to select the client ABC export. Right here, again, this is how the naming convention is going to be. It's going to be project number, name, view type, and view name. So if you look here at the bottom, each of the views that I have selected, so this is how it's going to be named. And let's take a look at the Navisworks as well. So here, this is where you can pick the parameters and the information that you want to add it to that file. So you can go through here, convert linked files, element ID, so you can check and uncheck this information and also set the file naming rules. So I will click OK for this. And one thing that we want to do is save. So we want to save this for later. So if we're later on, we're in 70% submittal, I want to make sure that I save this because then I can use it. I'm just going to replace that one and I have it. Then let's say we're on a 70% submittal, I can go back and then use it and take a look at the settings. Maybe I want to change the sheets and then add some more information. But most of the settings already in there, including how do I set it up, the subfolder naming convention, how the PDF and then the DWG naming convention is set to. Before I run, there's one more thing that I want to talk about is about the scheduler. So we can, this is just a quick note here, we can select to do not show you again. So we can actually schedule how we're going to set up, if it's weekly, to export all of that collection of projects. So the schedule works in a computer that needs to be logged in, but not that needs to be logged in. You can lock the computer, but you don't unlock. So then you keep it logged, and then you can select how you're going to set. So you can use it. You can create a new type in here, and then add the settings on how you want to do this as one time. So it's going to be daily, weekly, and then you can even select like the day that this happens. As a Friday at 8 p.m. So then you also uses the files that edit the files that you want to export that on a weekly basis, and then Revit it's gonna CGC is gonna open the files and then run the process for you. So the Plot Explorer will run on projects that only exist on your network. It will not currently run in an automated way when projects that exist in BIM 360. Although the tool works on open projects, they are in BIM 360. So if this model here wasn't in BIM 360 and then I have it open on my machine, I could run the Plot and Explorer. I could not edit files on the schedule mode. So then after I complete this, I'm just going to close. I can click Run, and it will run this process. So I've done this before, and I'm going to show you the folder. It's just going to take, it does not take a while. It's very quick. So if I bring the folder, this is what's going to look like. So it creates a subfolder with the date. And then when I open here, I have, those are the Navisworks file. I have the export CAD file, and I also have a PDF. So everything it's going to stay on that single folder. So after we're done this Plotter Explorer, The other type of submittal is when we want to give the other consultants the entire model. So this tool we're going to use now, the project processor, works using a rule-based environment. So how many times we waited? So this tool can be used to clean up the files instead of waiting for the file to crash or get too big to actually take some actions. And most of the times when this happens, this is going to be time consuming, because now we have to figure out how am I going to clean this file, or trying to find out what is the issue with the file. And everyone stops working because the file, let's think about, we only have one central file, and then we need to make sure that that central file is clean. So the project processor, it's going to help us not only with the submittal process, but also to keep our file clean. Today, I'm going to focus more on the submittal process, because there are tons of tools that we can talk about in this project processor tool. So there are two types of tabs in here in the project processor. So we have the projects, where we can add the multiple files in here. We can open the files that are opened as well. I just picked one here, but if I remove this, I can say add open project, and I'm just going to add this project in here. And on the second tab is the processes. So here is where we establish the rules that we want, or how we want to clean, or maybe we want to swap things. So if I uncheck this information, usually they come all checked in. You can uncheck them and go one by one. It's a good time to take a look of those steps. So if I check this one here under the files, for example, I can select how am I going to open the file. I can tell to open the file with the audit, and I can open with the work shared files detached as well. And you can ask to remove a backups file. So you can give, you can tell the project processor to save into another location after it's done. So we can also go through here the clean tab. So I'm going to keep it this one. And under the clean tab, I'm going to check this to activate everything. So here I have the line patterns. I have view sheets, fill patterns, templates, view port types, filters, links, all of this that I can use it to clean. Maybe I'm going to go through the swap first, because instead of a cleaning, I might want it to change it. So here in the clean tab, we have dimension styles. And then even before I decided to remove those dimension styles, I may want to swap those dimension styles. So for example, here I can add one, and let's say a linear type of dimension. Let's take a look at what we have here. So some of them are very different from the naming convention that I have it. So they're not very standard. So then what I can do is I can kind of investigate where is this being used. So then I can go here and say, well, the dimension style 33, I want to swap by the linear, this type here. So you can go through the project itself and then just make sure which ones are being used and then swap those types. Same thing for textiles. So we can take a look at some of the textiles. It does not follow the naming convention, and if being used, it does not follow the type properties that you want, and you want to make sure that it reads the correct font type, font size, and everything. Same thing for line and style. So I can go through here and then pick the line and styles. They're not part of the standards, and then swap line patterns, field patterns, and similar for materials. Then I can go through the cleaner process here. So I can go and clean some sheets if I want to. Let's say for submittal, we don't really, when we're handing in this 3D file, we don't want to send them with sheets, because they're not going to use those sheets. So we can make the file smaller by cleaning up those. So we can clean up all the sheets as well. So there's a use empty or even all of them. You can search in here, selected the rule based, all of those sheets. And the same thing with some of the view types. So we want to make sure that we clean up some of the working views. So those working views you're not going to be using, and it might be messy as well. So we want to send the file as clean as possible. In terms of links, we can also clean some of those links. So let's say I have unused links in here, and then I can remove those. Same idea with the import. All the imports I want to remove because they're not going to need it, or maybe the unused imports, depending on what you've been using ports for. So if I have a WG that I brought in, I want to make sure that I remove those ones. In the parameters tab, I can delete things like duplicated parameters. Sometimes you find duplications of the same parameters. We kind of want to clean up some of that stuff. And usually the cleanups parameter, it's dangerous, so we gotta be aware what we were doing, so we're not removing any information. So after I went through all of those tabs, I clean up everything, I select, I can go through the purge in here, and right here at the bottom I can say, well, I'm gonna purge of the families and symbols that are not being used, line styles that are not being used, line patterns, fill patterns. So you can pick by checking those, activate, make them active, and then select the information that you want to purge. And this is what is called like a hard purge, right? So it's gonna delete the user element. After we go through this process, we can also save this configuration for later. So it's like a project processor config for this type of model. So you can save that and use it later. And then that way you keep this not only an automated process, but also consistent. So we want to make sure that all of those things are being cleaned, all of those bins being swapped when we're sending and saving this file for the consultant. So after I'm done this, I click start and we'll be done. So ideally we want to test this on a detached project. It's like a good recommendation. It's detach a copy of the file, run, and make sure that everything is good, it's not deleting anything important, and then you can actually run into your actual project. Okay, I hope you like this webinar. There will be some questions at the end, space for questions, for Q&A. I see you next time. Thank you.